What is up, you guys? Hi. Welcome back to Shenanigans and More. This is your Psycho host, Psycho Alex, and this is Shenanigans and More. So, as promised, I've been working on a lot of stuff, and it's really hot today. I've been working on a lot of stuff and trying to get in the mood for all the upcoming festivities and trying to keep my head um, where it needs to be on top. Yeah. Um, but if you guys have started to see my stickers or Shenanigans and More stickers all around town, that's what's up. If you already have posted yours, whether it's on your notebook, whether it's on your person's stuff, on your own person's stuff, that made no sense. Or you actually posted it somewhere and was a rebel and stuff, like, take a picture and post it. Send it to me, DM it to me. I'll be more than happy to post it. So for today's episode, I've been working on it. It's been difficult to actually get situated with my friends and be able to get around to gather all the perfect content for this episode. And I am gonna be I want to say possibly left some stuff out, left some of you out, and I apologize. I just really wanted to get through this episode and wanted to be able to post it and get you guys going and get back on track with everything that is coming. And just because I haven't interviewed the people doesn't mean that I'm not working on them. They're being constantly worked on. It's just that it's a lot to gather. I mean, we're adults. I respect it. I appreciate you guys' time. More than anything, whether you believe me or not, I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate I try to take you guys out to eat as a little compensation, but I appreciate you guys' time. I understand we're adults, we got lives, we got children, we got things to do, and sometimes we can't, and that's totally understandable. So for today's episode, long story short, it's an episode about what is ADHD and what is life with ADHD. Now, as all of you guys know, I'm a 30-something-year-old. We're going to leave the rest to question. I'm just kidding. But, as people in my age and my generation, I think had the real struggle. There might have been a few people before us who struggled more at some point between millennials and egg generation X, but ADHD and a lot of these disorders that now people are understanding and recognizing and actually dedicating time to do research and things like that, were very difficult before, in the before times. It wasn't as easy to speak about it, to understand it, to even dedicate time to it. Besides, people are automatically assuming that your kid misbehaves, that you're not being a stern enough parent, and stuff like that. And we get to talk about that today with a parent's point of view, as well as also two other guests of mine who unfortunately couldn't be on the podcast, but we made time to be able to talk and discuss about what their life was like growing up and stuff like that. So I jotted down a few of the questions I kind of went through. I also got a point of view of an uncle who basically raised his niece and was able to see how it was. And even though it's not the same thing as being this direct parent and father figure for his niece, he was there and he was able to understand and see and grow up along with her everything that it had to do, right? So I went ahead and asked him, actually, my dear friend, if he believed that it was hereditary, and he suggested that it might be. There was, once they were learning what the symptoms and the type of behavior that she was going through while she was growing up and being diagnosed, they were able to pick up on something that he himself or other members of the family might have gone through growing up, you know. So I asked, what is ADHD? And he answered with inability to focus. ADD, it's like ADD but on crack and extra. Um, I asked him if he remembered when she was diagnosed. He said when she was really little, like maybe 6 or 7 years old. Um, I asked if she was treated differently. In his point of view, if she was treated differently, that's part of the questions, by the way. I'm just kind of going off of whatever I not notes I jot down. Um, he said that she was treated differently, as in like hard to handle, and the more I go over these stories, the more you're gonna be able to see that that's kind of what a lot of the people outside um accused these parents or uncles or relatives, friends, of not being able to handle their children, because they were hard to handle. Um, Tried to be patient, but it was a little extreme. Overwhelming feeling. She would go and poke you, and then repeatedly and repeated until there was a need to yell at her, even now that she's a teenager. So that's another thing that I was able to pick up on cue. Another cue that I was able to pick up based on multiple um, conversations, I guess you can say, that the kids growing up with ADHD don't understand, essentially, no, right? Like, I understand that I was a kid once, and I might have teased my brother even after he said no, but to the point where like, if my mother was giving me a direction, if no meant no, then you knew you had to stop. You knew you had to not, you weren't going to be able to do such thing or whatever. And a lot of the times, kids with ADHD don't understand um, direction like that. Don't understand that no means no. And even if they understand it, when I mean they don't understand, I mean like it doesn't um, click on them that there they have to stop, whether they know or understand that there's consequences for them still doing so. Like, it isn't until the extreme of being yelled at, or being reprimanded, being in timeout, or whatever it is that it is used to reprimand them. um he was trying to be patient with her, even though that, like, he's trying to be patient with her now that she's a teenager, but she did have habits of poking him or bothering him, and she didn't understand until he got to the point where she had to yell at her. He was saying that her mom was not patient, but she became more patient, and everyone around her had to become more patient and understand that this wasn't like, something that she chose to not listen to. It just didn't make sense in her brain. She did have struggle with grades and struggle with focus. At the same time, her parents were separating, and then on top of that, her dad passed away, so it only made it more complicated and worse for her behavior, her attention focus, and dealing with her own emotions and expressing. I did ask if she had help, or if the school created help, assistance or aid or something like that. He said nothing helped as support or something gets her like a sport or something that gets her focus. He says that she likes to play video games. That's another thing that I was able to get. My nephew, who I'm going to speak about in a little bit, actually is really good at video games, and he can actually pay attention and do multiple things at once in the video game, but it's the only time you get to really see him sort of sit still and sort of not rush around and do everything. And he said the same thing, that she's really good at video games. It helps her focus and keeps her preoccupied with multiple things at once, which is kind of what the idea of a lot of the video games currently that they're showing, they are coming out with, that you have to do multiple things at once. And I asked what were his fears of being an impediment of her living a normal life when she grows up, and since she is already a teenager. And what he was explaining to me is that um, he believes that she'll be able to live a normal life, be able to have a job, and be able to probably live on her own and stuff. It's just that it has been, um, she has been taking meds for years now, and that he's just more concerned as far as like, instead of just being still innocent, still being sort of like taken advantage of, and um, you know, her type of personality and the ADHD, like it just, instead of maybe protecting her or making her aware of her surroundings and stuff, might make her distracted to what she needs to be focused on, and he's afraid of like people just taking advantage of her in relationships or otherwise, friendships and stuff like that. um when he says that she had taken medication, um, she would be super calm, a little too much. She would just get really, really quiet and focused. At first, she lost weight, then and it would create, because the medication, I'm going to speak about it as well. That was one of the points that I should just pinpoint all the points. But, um, the medication, while it helps with staying focused and staying alert and like a slow down to their behavior, to allow them to focus and stuff, it also creates them to be super like groggy or lose appetite and things like that. And there's side effects, and there's a list of the side effects, and those are some of the side effects that they were able to notice and that were considered normal side effects, you know. So now she alternates the days that she takes medicine. Sometimes or most of the time that she's going to school, she takes her medicine. Otherwise, she gets a freebies on the weekend. You know, when she's not taking them though, she actually like eats and then gets to enjoy everything she likes to eat. Um, yeah, like I said, he's afraid of her getting like into taking advantage or being lured and stuff like that. Social skills as a teenager, I mean, typical teenager, that she doesn't explode. He says that she implodes, which is like in times of getting frustrated and getting angry, she'll just go quiet and she'll bottle up emotions and stuff like that. Now, this one's really cool. I actually got to talk to my friend who is the mailman. Say hi to the mailman. Hi, mailman. And who, as he mentioned on the episode as well, is that he has been diagnosed with ADHD as a child. And we were able to talk a little bit about it. He said that the first time he remembered in fourth grade, he had small classes. Oh, I'm so sorry. No. Oh my god, I'm so bad. This is not the right person. um, so this is not for the mailman. This is for my friend, and this all makes sense now. I'm sorry. And for the explanation of why the brain, what is ADHD to him, is the explanation why his brain can't concentrate and can stay in one topic. The list of things where he'll be told directions and it'll get from one, while you get to step number 5 and 6, like he'll just completely forget what he was supposed to do for steps 1 and 2. And I'm a victim of that, and I get easily distracted and stuff like that. Squirrel. But I'll completely forget what I'm doing and what I'm talking about because I get easily distracted. We're all victims of it, but some of us are a little bit more severe to the point where I can actually intervene in your life and your daily things. To him, this happens, with while at work, and he's a grown up adult, you know. He says that the first time he remembered fourth grade, he had small classes, and in fifth grade when he moved, he actually was given a test because his classes were doing, so he was doing bad in his classes, and The test consists of patterns and numbers and memorization. He remembered being 10 years old, and he was doing regular classes when he moved to a new school, which caused him to struggle. And that's when they decided to test him because he was staying behind. Even taking notes off the board were very difficult for him. And after he got diagnosed, then they put him back in small classes, and he actually had a learning plan, which is IEP, independent education plan or something like that. And he was able to recognize that he had difficulty memorizing and repeating information back again, like being given directions 1 through 6 or something, and forgetting, you know or losing concentration on the following steps while you're trying to remember what the first 3 steps were. He remembers he was extra curious. That's what he remembers. See, being extra curious is that's how he called it, where it was very difficult for him to understand what no meant. It was he called it curiosity, but he remembered getting in trouble, and he remembers his mom told him, "Don't ever call 911." And he said, "But why?" And didn't understand why not. And so he went and called 911, and then the emergency services answered, and he hung up because he got super scared because he didn't know, he realized what he had done. And the police showed up and almost gave his mom a ticket because they showed up thinking that there was an actual emergency because he hung up. Um, he said, I asked if he was treated differently, and he said that he was accused of things because of his curiosity. He would always tend to be the kid who would get in trouble, who would get caught doing things, or was automatically blamed for things missing, and things like that. He was very impulsive as well. He wasn't able to process things, and he talks about that. My beautiful nephew, growing up, it was very, very difficult, to process the emotion. And there was no stage of, I'm getting mad, I'm getting angry, I'm getting explosive. It would just be from, you did this to me. He said that the doctors, after he was diagnosed, my dear friend, my cutie friend, shout out, after he was diagnosed, he says that he was the doctors recommended his mom to put him on medicine and medication, and she didn't want to. She was scared of the side effects and things that the medication will cause him, so she never chose to have him given medication. Growing up, when you're able to be old enough and experience and interchange with classmates or whatever, he was able to use it while in high school, and he said that he was able to see that it was able to help him focus. He was also in sports, and it helped him a little bit more with like the energy, that extra energy that you would say he had. But he was also a hands-on learner, so it makes more sense and easier access for him to learn. Easier for him to learn things if he is hands-on, if he is able to actually process things the way they're supposed to function, instead of just getting told, you do this, step 3, step 4, step 5. He never had a tutor. He in the small classes there was more attention because there were smaller classes, but he didn't have a tutor. He, like I said, he had smaller classes where they had personalized independent studies, and he wouldn't ask for help because he was very quiet and shy, which now, to think of it, he says that he was very quiet and very shy, so it would create this, like, impediment for him to ask for help, and to get extra attention when he actually needed help. And it was just really more like fear or shyness than anything, which unfortunately will only hold him back a little bit. He says that he was never really taught, or got, like I said, extra assistance or help, and he had to translate. So English is his first language, but his parents spoke Spanish and understood him English, so he had to translate for him, and he really hated having to interact with other people, and he was really shy, and it made it awkward for him. And he said that the people that were the closest and um you know helped him more was the teachers in the smaller classes. He's saying again about the losing focus, and the distractions of like having to be given directions and be able to remember like the steps and how to go about that. Oh, that was a question of, would you say things are harder for you, and how did you get by? Was there ever a time where you felt like you couldn't lead a normal life? And he answered, anxiety, like about school or feeling behind, like you feeling like you failed, like the overwhelming and stuff like that. And then I asked if there was a character that he felt most relatable to. He said Batman. He said that because he was always in the shadows, and since he was so shy and feeling like he couldn't really speak out, um, and hidden, and then he just says that he considers himself a man of few words. I asked, what would you tell your younger self? And he said, I would tell my younger self to be more confident and to be the best version of yourself. Um, and it's important, I guess, in a way, because he didn't have no one to kind of show him the ropes or tell him where, he needed to ask for help, even if he felt shy about it and things like that, especially because he had a little bit more of the option to have it. I also asked him, what would you say to someone who is younger and going through the same similar situation as you? And he said, I would tell someone younger that's going through the similar situation, if you feel different or get treated different, just know that there's nothing wrong with you, and people are different. Just know people don't understand when things are different than them, and the expectations don't mean that you have to fit into this box, you know. Um, and also, I asked about the medication. I already asked about the medication, and oh yeah, and then I asked about what are you afraid of, or what is it that worries you about your future, or that you hope to achieve, regardless of this possible he didn't get diagnosed for a disability, but it can be, considered a disability. But he says that he can hope to learn to manage his time and his goals better. He sometimes forgets to handle things or prioritize, and people may think, that it's on purpose, or that it's immaturity, and some of it may, talked about it, but some of it may not, and some of it just may be like never being taught to have that structure, of managing time and understanding, staying focused into what the goal of the day is, which is like go to the gym or go to work and get to work on time, and get your priorities um, in scheduled in to your normal life, to become um, a more timing, more a person on time, and to be able to have all these things that normal people structure normal people have. Um, as long as you're working on it, it's totally awesome, and that you're doing a good job and you're working on it, and I totally appreciate you. Um, so I'm sorry, this whole episode is a little bit of a hot mess. But I was able to talk to a very dear person of mine who has two children who actually suffer. They don't suffer. I mean, it is a suffering, because they're not understood, and it took a while for them to be for all of us to wrap our heads around the situation, but who actually were diagnosed with ADHD. Now, one of them, when they were diagnosed, the doctors kept just like denying the test. Yeah. Uh, and uh, and also it made it really difficult because coming from a Mexican culture, your parents and your relatives always automatically believe you're not doing a good job when you're taking care of your child if your child misbehaves, if they're hard to handle, if you're getting put in timeout doesn't do anything, if getting yelled at no doesn't do anything. And a lot of their misconceptions and their criticism was not helpful. And I'm very happy and proud of where this mom is at now, with 3 children later, and 2 diagnosed with ADHD. Very proud of you, just so you know. Well, she said, I have 3 kids, and my firstborn, when he was little, it was difficult to deal with him. He would have tantrums. Everyone made me feel like I couldn't control my kid, and I realized he was different when he was 1 year old. At 3, after a couple of years, at 3, she finally demanded for the doctors, the pediatricians, to test him, and they were still saying no. The pediatrician told me I needed to be more stern and strict with my son. I figured it out on my own. I had to keep asking for them to check him, and he wasn't because he wasn't like the other kids. Academically, he was doing better with meds, because he was able to calm down and focus. Now, before I get to the rest of it, the way that she was able to figure it out was that she was on Facebook. So it ain't that bad. She was on Facebook one day reading about ADHD, and it was giving just a description of the signs, and it suddenly all made sense. It painted out to be pointed out to be my son. He was 3 at the time. He forgets things and gets very distracted easily get angered, goes from 0 to 100, and not a progressive anger, but like an explosion. Like, it was just sudden. He would suddenly take away, I don't know, his toy, or tell him he couldn't have something, and it would just be like an explosive tantrum out of like a second. And so she figured it out on her own, had to keep asking them for them to finally get tested. Once he got tested, he was able to be placed in the right academic classes and get the help and also get medication. But once diagnosed, he was put in a plan that they call 504 plan, which gives teachers a plan to follow because now they know he needs extra attention or patience, but because his diagnosis is not a disability, they don't necessarily follow it, or have to follow it. Medicine started working on his focus, but it would make him look like a zombie, and he was never angry, so he never hungry, I'm sorry, so he lost weight, and started to because of that, we started to alternate the days that he was taking his medication, in order for him to take it and stay focused, but as well as not lose that amount of weight because he needed to grow. Now as a teen, he handles things a little better, even off his meds, but he does have explosive moments. He doesn't want to take his meds because he says he doesn't like the way they make him feel, and it's again like same thing about the food and the medication, not being able to be hungry. And some may say that some side effects are worth it or whatever, but it just seems to me that it just happens to all of them. All of the people who take the medication lose hunger, and that can't be healthy either, right? So she said he really likes to play video games, and that kind of keeps him busy and distracted. He is the oldest, and he fights with his siblings, but my youngest also had shown signs of ADHD to the point that the doctors have diagnosed it as a disability. That his school plan is by law a requirement that is called an IEP. So my little friend here is, I guess you could say, a little bit more severe than his older brother, and also has to be, taken seriously. The teachers have to pay the attention and follow this plan to assist him and to help him focus, and to take care of his needs in order for him to progress academically and grow as a child, and sometimes we don't take all those things into consideration when you see a parent struggling, when you see teachers struggling and trying to do the best they can. And I hope that they're giving them classes as well to show them and have, or hiring people who have specific patients for students like this. um and so individual IEP is an individual educational plan, which is funded to assist students who require extra attention and can receive therapy or tutors for instance math or other subjects that students lack. In this particular case, he has speech therapy. That's why it was diagnosed as a disability, because even though he is a first grader, I believe, um, he still has a difficulty communicating, and still uses sounds and pointing and things like that a toddler would, um so for my last friend, my this time is my my mailman friend. I'm sorry, mailman. I'm sorry, baby. To my other friend who totally butchered his story at the beginning. But I'm cutting that off. So for my dear friend Alejandro, he says that when he was younger, it was severe, and that none of the medications they gave him worked, and that could be a huge reason why now he suffers from insomnia. It makes it really difficult for him to focus and to sleep. He did talk about it in the episode of the How to Become a Mailman, that it made him it made it really difficult for him to read the questions for the test and process, what the question was actually asking and things like that, because of the difficulty of his experience with learning and having ADHD. And that is one of the things that I was actually able to gather as well with that, and that I've noticed with these kids, is that some of us have different ways of learning, right? So for Alejandro, I remember he told me one time, or while we were recording the episode and speaking about it, that it was easier for him to hear someone read to him than for him to read the words and for them to make sense in his brain. And I personally like to read out loud because it helps me comprehend what I'm reading. If I read to myself quietly, it makes it really, really difficult to understand what I'm reading, and I would have to reread it. And now that to me is probably not ADHD, it's probably just that the English being my second language. And that I have kind of sort of read here and there that I might be dyslexic. I may be tripping, but uh, I may be getting a diagnosis pretty soon if I actually go to therapy. But, you know, it's a lot and it's inevitable. Their energy, their focus, their distraction is inevitable unless they take this medication, and that turns them into zombies, and then it's chaos, right? It's a never ending cycle. Alejandro mentioned that in school, it will make it difficult for him to understand. And also, English is his second language. He learned speaking Spanish at home, and then went on to learn English at school, which made it even more difficult for him to be able to comprehend and translate and make sense in his brain what one thing meant to the other. Now, as an adult, he says that his brother helped him um, to read questions out loud, or to read information out loud to for it to make sense when he took the test and the application, while filling out, no, not when he took the test, for filling out the application, um that would help him become a mailman. And he mentioned that on one of the episodes. So you know it's it's a lot. It's a lot of dumping information. I'm sorry. It's a lot to process and understand, you know, and understand the way of life that some of us have to live. Some of us don't even know we have it. Some of us have struggled with school all of our lives and only been told that we're just bad at school and didn't really get enough attention. Our parents perhaps didn't pay enough attention or couldn't pay enough attention, single parents and all that stuff. But a lot of us have suffered and don't even know it. And now that we're adults, we get to actually, look it up ourselves or understand or hear experiences like this one where you get to understand that you may not be a bad student, a bad kid, and if you're grown up, you weren't a bad kid. You just had difficulties and people needed to be there and help you and support you, but they didn't. Sorry. If you know or have family members, or you suffer yourself, no, I'm gonna take that back, or you yourself have been diagnosed or can feel that you might have symptoms like this, look it up, go see a doctor, or something, and no shame, be supportive of each other, and understand. At least I feel like it might not necessarily solve things for you, but at least with an idea of what it is, it'll make it easier for you to understand that there's help, there is an outlet, there is how you can focus your energy, or how you can find other ways to learn, and how other people have found ways to learn and to understand what they're going through and why these things are happening. I know someone out there, she might not be watching this, but who was supposed to get tested and see if this was something that she might have grown up with, because school was really difficult for her, and staying still, and she was very shy, and she imploded a lot instead of actually going out and telling people off. It was just really difficult for her to process emotions and things and deal with it. And I think that's part of, that's not just being part of being a human and being a kid and a teenager or something, but it's part of, not being able to find outlets to process emotions and go from 0 to 100. And, now you can get help. Now you can know what's going on, and now you can talk to people about it, and probably even meet people who understand or can teach you, or who you can teach, But it's a very interesting topic. I really wish I could have had a guest over about it. My dear cutie friend was supposed to be on here, but timing, schedule, and life, it just gets in the way, and we never get to do what we want when we want it. Hopefully that'll start to change pretty soon, and I'll have more time and more availability for recording, but besides that, this has been Shenanigans and More, and this is your psycho host, Psycho Alex, and have you guys a good night. Ciao.